It is the strict policy of Ba Sing Se that the war not be mentioned within the walls. Constant news of an escalating war would throw the citizens of Ba Sing Se into a state of panic.
You have to believe me, they're firebenders. They won't stop until they win the war.
Calm down. You're safe now.
Our economy would be ruined. Our peaceful way of life, our traditions would disappear.
There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
What are you talking about? Where do you think all the refugees come from? You can't hide it.
In silencing talk of conflict, Ba Sing Se remains a peaceful, orderly utopia. The last one on Earth.
There is no war within the walls. Here we are safe. Here we are free.
I don't know how best to say this, so I would just express it like this. Something really strange, far out shit, some of it likely otherworldly, must have occurred in the 1700s and 1800s, which people who research this topic struggle to fully grasp and fully understand, as so much information has been hidden. There are so many subverting, misdirecting, control agents. There are also very likely some events that were happening that we have no historic evidence of. I have gained a pretty good feel for what has occurred. Everything we were told about history was a lie. The old world civilization was focused on harnessing and amplifying electric energy, which were solar particles coming from our sun, which is all around us in the atmosphere. And it looked like the smaller humans who eventually inherited what was left of their cities, the Freemasons, either discovered or retained some of this understanding. Not a complete understanding, but enough to be utilizing free energy. In the 1700s, there were these extravagant parties and events with excessive lighting, whole buildings and building complexes being lit up. This also occurred at many of the world fairs and expositions. Where were they getting all this energy from in the 1700s? It looked like the people in the 1700s Europe did not understand what these type of devices could be used for to bring beneficial energy into the body. Instead, they were being used for entertainment purposes, and perhaps for some other means such as house, street lights, and as well perhaps heat. These illumination parties seem to become much more rare in the 1800s. The more the giants were killed off or removed from the planet, the more knowledge was lost. So to make a long story short, they found all these types of stuff like electric swords, vehicle boats, flying machines that harness and amplify the electric energy from the atmosphere, flying umbrellas, steam vehicles, energy harnessing devices. The powers that be told the people that these huge intricate buildings used for exhibitions and fairs were temporary and had been built just for a fair or exposition, often said to be built in a ridiculous short amount of time frame for such a magnificent architecture. Of course, these buildings already were here. We did not build them. They were the old world buildings, built by the old world giants. Us smaller humans in the 1800s and early 1900s could not build these massive buildings and complexes with incredible intricate decorations, statues, and fountains. We would struggle to build them now. Many question is, such as, how did they keep these locations secret from the public? How did people back then not realize they were already there? The world was a very different place back then, and transportation was very different and limited, but it also seemed like the human population in these periods did not know what existed in their countries and did not seem to understand the limitations of the equipment available to any construction worker back then. It's all very odd. Either the level of naivety is beyond anything I can imagine, or something else was going on. Where had these people come from? It was like some new people had been brought into the countries that had no knowledge of the existing infrastructure or layout of the country. Or perhaps it all involved some memory wipe or of the remaining people. Perhaps both of these things occurred. When you see some of these buildings close up, you will realize how absurd this whole narrative is. It was another way to explain away, repurpose, and destroy some more of this old world architecture to deceive the smaller humans that had seemingly inherited this architecture. Apparently, these tiny people below the horse and cart, and perhaps a few little electric cars and no power tools, built these buildings in a few years just for a fear. There is no doubt that insane asylums played a big part in controlling the population as this transition into a reinvented planet was made. The huge increase in the establishment and formation of insane asylums in Europe, North America, and Australia in the 1800s and early 1900s is the most definitely not a coincidence. What do you do with people who are questioning the narrative, speaking out against the lies being told to the population? You put them in an insane asylum. What do you do with people who are not behaving in the way you want, who are getting others to question what was occurring? You put them in an insane asylum. What do you do with people who had seen unusual otherworldly events or entities? You put them in an insane asylum. There does not seem to be a huge amount of information out there on what actually occurred in these institutions. As you can imagine, it would have been hidden and covered up. But there are some interesting activities that can be uncovered. Interestingly, many of the asylums had cemeteries and cremation machines on site. How weird is that? Some of these insane asylums also had farms as well. It seems that they could be their own little isolated community. The Insanity Law of 1897 created the State Commission on Lunacy, which was given authority to see that all laws relating to care and treatment of patients were carried out and to make recommendations to the legislature concerning the management of hospitals for the insane. The 1897 law provided that each hospital should be controlled by a board of managers of 5 members appointed by the governor for 4-year terms. The lunacy law reforms passed allowed no insane person to be associated with criminals, no open court hearings, judge not required to assess detainees, institutions named hospitals instead of asylums. History is repeating itself. Most of these structures became overcrowded with alleged lunatics up through the beginning of the 20th century. So more asylums were needed, yet the population numbers at the time did not justify the immense size of the buildings or numbers of people they claimed were committed. How did they assume they would need such asylums in such a short time if they didn't already foresee such mass populations being outspoken to the truth? You know how many people they had committed? The numbers is outstanding. There's very little we know that went on in these asylums, but what we can decipher is that the powers that be and the proxies wanted certain people out of society, and that many locations they made it extremely easy for anyone to be admitted in these insane asylums. Here's the reason of administration back then in West Virginia from 1864 to 1889, including laziness, egotism, disappointed love, female disease, mental excitement, cold, snuff, greediness, imaginary female trouble, gathering in the head, exposure and quackery, jealousy, religion, asthma, masturbation, and bad habits, and many other absurd reasons. You can only imagine the torture and brainwashing that went on in these asylums. The TIs of the past was put away and killed, erased from history, and they're going to try to do the same thing when they roll over this new world order. History is repeating itself. They're looking to do another reset. Like the insane asylums, the number of orphans, orphanages, and foundling institution massively rose in the 1800s and early 1900s. Coincidence? After getting rid of damn near the whole populace, that's when many new orphanage and founding institutions were established throughout Europe and the United States in the 1800s and early 1900s. It is difficult to find any in-depth information on this topic. I also doubt we are getting the correct statistics. The numbers are likely higher than they say. Everything we are told is a cover-up. The powers that be obviously needed the orphanage for child labor and to repopulate certain regions. Nearly all these young children were stripped of their identity and given new names, almost blank slates to fill the sparsely populated reset cities. Children with new identities, no history, with no tale from their parents and great-grandparents about what the world was like when they were growing up. The powers that be clearly wanted orphans. The Irish famine would have likely been created by the non-human force from above, spreading toxics into the atmosphere, which would then settle into the plants, which is interesting as it seems like this force will have some contact and communication with certain proxy groups on Earth. By the way, a nation's entire potato crop does not all get disease at once. It's illogical. You had people with no past and heavy trauma smoothly transitioning into child labor, baby incubators, and babies for sale phase of the late 19th century, early 20th century, into enduring the world's fear where Masonic handbooks were passed around. These handbooks taught things like how to learn and how to think, and if I remember correctly, how to take care of kids and make kids. Information that wouldn't be needed to be passed down around out of fear, unless there was a lack of parents to pass down this very basic generational information. It supports the theory of repopulation by rootless orphans and world fears being centered to reintroduce technologies and science, and also indoctrinate and teach completely fresh rootless generations how to function in society. This begs the question, what's the difference between a penitentiary school and an orphanage? Elementary school or orphanage? Not to mention there was a fad of babies growing from cabbages around the time. Whether it's some apocalyptic earth event or just mass death and war, such a huge number of orphans with no documentation on how they were orphans is suspicious. It's suspect. They appeared out of nowhere. I do not recall recorded history ever having such scores of orphans being shipped across the country with absolutely no documentation on how they came to be in that situation. Every other instance in recorded history, such as a thing, at least had some attempt at explaining it with a war or something, but trainloads of orphans out of nowhere with following no war. And there are most people today, if they track their lineage, they will find that they have no records dating back to the 1800s. That's because they probably was birthed in an incubator. The rabbit hole is deep.